All right, guys, just give us 1 minute and we're going to get started here in about 1 minute. All right. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Stephen.
Morning. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Got a thumbs up from Adam. Thank you. All right. And okay.
Yeah, we're looking good.
Looking good.
Thanks,
good.
Sean.
All right. Awesome. So today we are going to talk about call recordings, just because it seems to be a hot topic. We're coming up on AEP and we need to make sure that we're getting all these calls recorded. And I keep getting asked this a whole lot. And so I wanted to address this with all of the users, especially the ones that take the time to join this call every day. Make sure that you know how to record. Make sure you've got this down pat. Make sure you know what you're doing well before October 1st. So October 1st gets here next week. You can focus on selling, focus on servicing your current clients and gaining new business rather than worrying about call recordings and what that system or process is going to look like for you, right? So let's see if I can get my screen shared over here. All right, everybody can see that. Get this out of the way. Boom. Perfect. All right. So call recording. The way that we're going to be recording all of our calls is inside of the GoGuru platform. So as many of you are aware, GoGuru uses the Twilio software as our ways of communicating via text message and the soft phone that's built inside of the system. And so if you haven't explored that, you have a little phone key up to the top right of your screen up here, and click that, and it's going to allow you to dial out. And you set up these numbers that you dial out from inside of the system. You do that by going to settings and then phone numbers, right? All right, so let's just go over how to set your phone numbers up appropriately to make sure that for one, they're being routed to the right place, right? Like when that number is called, make sure it's ringing on the other end to the right, wherever that may be, your office, cell phone. Make sure it's set to enable the call recordings, and then, like I said, test these numbers, make sure they're working, make sure you can record a few calls before we actually get on the phone with the customer and it becomes an issue. And you might have to call somebody back just to make sure you're getting this done, right? All right. So the first thing you're going to want to do is log into GoGuru Pro, the CRM, head over to your phone number section. And that's under your settings. So click settings and then phone numbers. Here's going to be your layout for your phone numbers. So you're going to create a new number. Ideally, you don't have any numbers when you come here, but if that's the case, or you want another number, you're simply going to click add number. And then right here, you're going to pick your area code that you would want to use. And it's going to give you a list of numbers to choose from. So I can't choose the actual number that's going to be used. It's just pulling from a random pool of numbers that have been released, and they vetted them out, make sure that they're good numbers. I think they go through like some 2-year cycle or something before Twilio will allow you to use it. So they kind of vet the numbers out to prevent spam and stuff like that. But you're going to have this pool of numbers to choose from. So just pick you out any number that looks good. I'm going to roll with this first one here, and I'm not going to save it just because it's going to charge me $1 and I don't need another number. So let's just say I created that new number. Now it's going to have a new number here. All this should be blank, forwarding blank, and we would need to set this up. So right here, I'm going to allow what my default outbound number is. What is the number that the system is going to use when I send a text message out? So if I define the default number here, every time a text message goes out, it's going to come from that number unless I assign one of these other numbers to an actual user. And that user is assigned to the contact. Then the message goes out and it comes from another number that was assigned to that user. Does it make sense? So if I don't have the user assigned number and I don't have that user assigned to the contact, that number won't be used. It's always going to come from this default number.
Right.
All right. So you would select a default number. It could be any of these. I mean, for me, it really doesn't matter. Like, I think I had it on number 3 right here was our default number. Right. So we could leave it there on the default number. But let's customize one of these numbers. So you see Johnny Bork here. We're gonna mess with Johnny Bork's here. So just name the number. You can name this whatever. If I'm going to assign this number to an agent, like I'm going to set this number up right now, give it the agent's name. So if it's just Johnny Brock, all right. And so this is Johnny Brock's cell phone number. Johnny wants all the calls to come to his cell phone number if somebody calls back when they receive a text message from him. So we've got his cell phone number put in the forward all calls to. Now I can pass the called number as the caller ID. That doesn't, by default, the system works like traditional caller ID. When you receive a phone call, the number that's calling you shows up on your phone. But let's just say you want the Twilio number to be passed through to your cell phone. Instead of the actual person that's calling, that number coming through, you want the Twilio number that was called to come through. This is going to help you identify calls. Maybe you have a couple of different campaigns going on, right? Maybe you have one at the doctor's office and you're telling them it's a referral campaign or something, right? And then the other one you put on a billboard. So when it comes off the billboard number, I maybe need to answer it a little bit differently than I answer the referral call or something, right? However you want to identify it. You could have different numbers. But when I answer it, I can say, okay, this is my billboard number. I'm going to answer that call. Or this is my referral number. I'm going to answer that call, right? It'll help you identify it. But if you leave this unchecked, it's just going to work like traditional caller ID. I would recommend leave it unchecked, let it work like traditional caller ID. But again, you may have something that you are looking to accomplish or some way to identify different numbers. In that way, check this box. The other option that you get is the enable call connect feature. So this feature requires that the receiver press a key in order to connect the call. This will result in higher accuracy for call reporting. And then it allows you to click there for more info. All right, it's gonna take you back to that number. So yeah, just a big circle there. But if I enable the call connect feature, when you receive the call, it's going to say this whisper message if you have a whisper message, but it's going to say you have an incoming call from this number. Do you want to accept? Press 1 to connect the call, or like 2 to send a voicemail. And then you'll press 1 and it'll connect the call. And now you're talking to them. But it's a way for you to answer the call, see where it's coming from, and then filter it out if you wanted to. Again, I would recommend leaving that off. I want to talk to anybody that's going to call this number. So I would recommend leaving it off, but there's certain situations where you may want to enable the call connect feature so you can kind of screen calls a little bit more effective.
It's just two different ways of gatekeeping. It's really what,
what
it's for.
Exactly.
You can choose either way or choose neither of them, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Right. It's a way to answer the call and still send it to voicemail without, just sending it straight to voicemail. So the other thing here is the whisper message. The whisper message is what is going to be said to the client when the call connects. So, excuse me. I said it backwards. Yeah. It's what's going to be whispered to you before the call connects, right? So you're going to get a call and you can make this say call from squiggly bracket source. So like if I have opportunities and clients, I'm defining a source and you can have that source whispered back to you. So let's just say the source is Facebook ads. You could say call from a Facebook ad. Or if I was getting very granular, I might be more specific with it. And I might say it's a call from, a veteran campaign Facebook ad. And then now I know exactly what I'm going to answer to once the call does connect, right? It's going to say call from a veteran Facebook campaign. Now I'm like, oh, okay. Now I know how I need to address this call. And I know what I need to do, what the goal of this call is, because I know how the lead was generated and why they're ringing this number right now. So it just helps you identify that.
To speak to that real quick, if you are going to do it from the source, you have to make sure that your source field is filled out effectively, or else you will be getting some interesting whisper messages. I recommend to some people, and if you don't want to do a call connect and waste time, like if they pick up the phone, press any key to connect this call, you really don't want to waste time on getting on the phone. But if you do have to have a whisper message, just do call from GoGuru, and then you know that it's a call from GoGuru and you can answer accordingly and fact find from there.
Right. So you can make that a defined value, like, call from GoGuru. If I type that in there, every call is going to say that. Of course, with that source, it's using the variable of your source field. So whatever you're putting in there, like Will said, if it's blank, it's going to say call from. And it's not going to say anything because there's nothing to say. There's nothing for the computer to read, right? So just be aware of that. The other and most important thing is going to be this next box here, call recording. I'm going to take that space out so you can see. All right. So this is how it is by default. Call recording is unchecked. I would recommend you go in and turn that on, right? That's why we're talking about this, is because you need the ability to record all calls. So make sure that your call recording box is checked. And by default, if you check that box, it says this call will be recorded for quality assurance, right? As soon as the call connects, that's what the client hears. Or even if they call you, right when they call the number, it says this call will be recorded for quality assurance. Some of you may want that. It may be fine. If you do not want that, you're just going to put a space right there. You put a space in there, again, the computer's not going to have nothing to read. It can't read a space. So it's just, there's nothing. It's not going to say anything. It's going to go ahead and record the call, but it's not going to mention to the customer that the call is being recorded. So use that as your own preference. I've talked to some agents who have wanted to put the disclaimer in there. Seems like a good idea. I don't know how effective it would be. I don't know if it'd be doing more harm than good, because they have to listen to a 2-sentence robot before they even talk to you. And that may just be a huge turnoff right there to initiate the call. We're not doing that. So, it's an option, we're having the actual agent read the disclaimer, saying, I do not represent all plans. If you want to represent all plans, call 1-800-Medicare, Medicare.gov, that good stuff. We're having the agent read that to the client after the call is connected. So we're not putting any of that there.
Trying to get into the head of the client, really, when you're dealing with the demographic that we deal with, and they have to listen to 45 seconds of automated talking, there's a good chance that they're not going to be there at the end of that 45 seconds.
That's
so
true.
Because they don't like to listen to, they don't say automation. They say, I don't want to listen to that computer. That's what they say. And that's
Right.
that's how they'll feel. So,
Yeah.
However, you never really know. I mean, this is all brand new for all of us. We're all brand new to this recording situation. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error that's happening this year.
Yeah. And I would,
Calls can be recorded.
right.
And that's the important thing.
I would, and I would say what we've been telling a lot of our downline agents is have a plan to record the calls, record as many as you possibly can, and be able to identify them. Right. In all reality, hopefully you don't get any complaints where the call has to be presented. Right. Hopefully we're all working with a high level of, ethics, and we're doing the best thing for all our clients, and complaints are going to be very minimal. So in the rare instance that you have to provide this call, have it available, be ready for it. But don't stress out about it. Don't let it dominate your entire process, and don't let it overwhelm you to the point where you're not making as many sales as you would had this not been put in place. So let's just continue creating this number to make sure that process is seamless and you don't even have to think about it. Right. So now that I've got my box checked, call recording, again, I'm going to put a space there so it doesn't say this call is going to be recorded for quality assurance purposes. If you want that, by all means, leave it there. It's a good feature. All right. So I've got the number set up, but I'm not done yet. So if I want this to be a dedicated number to the agent, where when this number is called back, it always goes to Johnny Brock, right? I've got to go assign this number to the agent in his profile. So let's go to my staff. Again, we're in the settings and my staff. I'm going to go over to Johnny Brock in my staff and click edit. And then there's a little feature here. It says call and voicemail settings. Inbound Twilio number. All right. So let's just read this little disclaimer. It says this is only required if the users need a dedicated number, not required for voicemail routing the call, or not required for voicemail or for routing the call to the assigned user. Right. So this is going to truly make this a dedicated number where everything always goes back to Johnny Brock. So I'm going to select that number. And so that's why I named it, so I can know that this is the one I intend on using for Johnny Brock. So I can see number 3 and number 5 are already assigned to another user. I'm going to assign Johnny Brock here that number. And now that I've made that connection, now that I've made that, I can call the number we generated for Johnny, and it's actually going to be forwarded to his cell phone number. And so when I say the call's forwarded, it's passed through like a traditional call. You're going to receive a call just like you receive any other call. The only difference is the call was generated by calling into the Twilio line, and then it was forwarded to you. So now it's being recorded inside of the system. All right. So if I give this number out, all of AEP, so I just created this number, and now everybody I talk to during AEP and say, hey, call me back on 723-3293. This is my number. It's always going to come to my cell phone number, but by doing that, it's always going to be recorded. All right. So let's just talk about another situation. Let's just say you're doing that, but you've already got clients that have your current telephone number, and they're calling you on your cell phone number or your office number, and that number is not being recorded. Our practice, what we've told our agents to do, hey, Joe, let me call you right back, and then call them back from the Twilio number. So if you're in the field, we have the app. It's the Go High Level app right now, but it's soon to be the GoGuru app. We're in the works on that. So it'll be the GoGuru app, branded for us here soon. But right now you can download the Go High Level app, and then in there you can text an email from there. So you can initiate the call outbound from inside the app. That will generate the call from this Twilio number, thus recording the call. Right. So if Joe calls me and says, hey, Steve, I want to go over some of my Medicare options. Okay. Hey, can I call you right back? All right. That's fine. Right. They're going to let you call them right back. You're going to hang up, go into Twilio or go into GoGuru and call them from the Twilio number. That's going to make sure your call is recorded. Now you're maintaining any compliance. And should you make the enrollment, like, you've got that call recorded.
And I'll say, if you haven't explored the app yet, go ahead and download it. Go ahead and get logged in and get familiar with it. It's much smaller, much more broken down than what you're going to get at your workstation when you're actually able to get in there and do some things. Yeah. But it does have everything that you'll need to be able to follow up with correspondence. If you have text messages, emails, things coming in, you need to respond back. And then also the call feature is seamless. It works really well. I tested it out yesterday with a couple of people. So just get in there and just get familiar with it. That's going to be really important.
So if you're looking for the app, we had somebody, Christina, just asked about the app. If you're looking for the app, there is a link under your support. So right here, inside of, you've got your support link. Click on support. And then, oh, there it was. If you have a Android, you can download the Android app. If you have an iPhone, you can download the Apple app in the store there.
And it's just called High Level. So just High Level, one word. If you search for it in the Go High Level on this now.
I think they have two versions available on the App Store. One's High Level, one's Go High Level.
Gotcha.
But again, we will have a GoGuru app available here pretty soon. And on the app, you can manage your opportunities, but the main thing is you can text and email from it, as well as place outbound calls. And that is going to get your call recorded by generating the call through here. So get the smartphone app by going to support down here in your sidebar. All right. So let's go and talk about where I'm going to find these recordings. Because let's just say I've got my phone number set up. I'm rolling along, right? I'm making calls, I'm receiving calls. So I can do this in a couple of ways. I can generate all my calls directly through here, or download the app, generate calls. So you're still using your cell phone, right? Your cell phone, I feel like, has a really reliable internet connection. If you're going to place calls through the soft phone inside of the system, I would recommend that you be hardwired, unless you have a really strong Wi-Fi connection. If you have a good, strong Wi-Fi connection, you're confident with it, you could be all right with it. Just know that there's a slight delay when you use the Wi-Fi, because it's a live phone call, right? There's going to be a slight delay. If possible, hardwire, get an Ethernet wire to go directly into your computer, so there is no delay or lag, and you've got the fastest internet connection and most reliable connection to place these outbound calls on. So you can generate the calls from your computer's browser using the smartphone. So you can see here with this Matthew Davis, I can click his number and call him immediately. Or if I'm in his profile, let me get rid of that. I can go ahead and click this phone, which will start the call as well. But let me go back. Joseph Tester here. All right. Oh, it didn't come from my number. It didn't tie it in. All right, so there's going to be two places that you can find all these call recordings. Again, assuming you've got your phone number set up and you're using the system, either you're receiving calls that have come to your number, or you're placing all your outbound calls from the smartphone on your desktop, or excuse me, from the cell phone on your desktop, or from your smartphone, the app on your smartphone. All right, one of the two options is going to get the call recorded. So if you're doing that and you need to find the call, let me see if I can find a call. Here's one. Last activity was a phone call.
Johnny Brock. Imagine that.
And he called from a number where call recording was not turned on. So I'm just looking at the last activity here to see one that was a phone call. Boom. All right. So there it is. So your calls will look like this inside of the system. So I can go right here and I can download it directly from that. It's going to bring me to another window. And then I'm going to click these little dots and I can download directly from there. So you'll notice this phone call is already saved on the interwebs, right? It's out there in the internet land, saved on this URL. Twilio is going to save that for you, but you need to cover your butt and keep this call recording on file for 10 years, right? So we can't rely on Twilio. When they come to you and ask for a call recording from 2 years ago, you say, well, I had it in Twilio, but Twilio don't keep it anymore. Well, wasn't Twilio's problem to make sure that you kept all your call recordings. It's up to you to make sure that you keep scope of appointments on file and the call recordings on file, right?
They have no idea what CMS is.
Yeah, so that's up to you. So I would say take the extra step, download the call recording, right? It's going to prompt me to download it. Maybe I have a folder saved on my desktop that says call recordings and I'm putting them all there, right? That's fine. You could do something like that. Maybe I want to name the call recording because right now it's going to come through with this random name. So let's just say I talked to Will Chapman 9/27/22. And let's just say it was an MAPD, UHC, Patriot plan. I put him on. Maybe so I can identify that, right? If they say, hey, I need you to give me that call from September 27th with Will Chapman. Now I have them all in a folder where I'm saving them. So it's an easy way to save it. All right. There is
And I will say this, we're all using GoGuru to record our calls, but just to cover you, if you're using something like Ring Central or something like that, do the same thing, please. Like get your calls from there too, because it's going to be the same process. They're going to keep them, but you can't trust them to keep them for that long. So always download your calls. It's really important.
Yep. And so if you want to rely on the system to record them, it is going to record them. How it's going to house them is in your call reporting. And so we'll go over that. So there'll be two ways that they're left in the system. They're going to be in your conversation view. So if you scroll up and down every conversation you've had, right? If you're having lots of text message and email conversations, or over the year, you're sending client retention campaigns. So like birthday emails and holiday emails and things like that. Just be aware that, it's going to push this conversation way up, and I may have to scroll back a little bit to get to it, but it should be there. The other place that is going to house your files like that is in the call reporting. So everybody should see a reporting button over to the left on the left side of your menu. So you should have reporting. And when you click on reporting, it shows you Google ads, Facebook ads, your attribution report with your conversation report, your source reports, call reporting, and appointments report. So in this instance, we're going to go look at call reporting. And now I can filter out numbers, right? So let's just say I want to look at that Johnny Brock number. Or let's just say there was numbers that I deleted out of the system. It's going to let me go back and look at them as well. Maybe I don't have the number anymore, but it's going to store the recording. So I'm going to look at calls from this Johnny Brock line, and we're going to say in the last 7 days only. All right. So now I have all calls from this number in the last 7 days. And right here, I have all the calls where they're going to be saved. And so I can see it. All right. Now let's say I'm looking for a even more specific, something. Let's just see. I think this is who I called, right? Will Chapman.
I called him earlier. That was the number we set up earlier this
Mm-hmm.
week. So yeah, but I called him and he picked up.
Right. So there was inbound. Yep. Inbound, outbound. And then I'm going to click this little download button right there. That little down arrow, download if I need to download it. And the same process of clicking the 3 little buttons, I can download the call there. But all the calls will be in this little call reporting locker. Let me filter it. See if I can. Just trying to see if it'll pull up Will's name here. If I was looking for the client. But there's a lot of filters here where I can narrow it down. So I can say anyone that generated from a certain campaign. Was it qualified? Was the lead source? Was it the first call? Was it a completed call, failed call, mobile, duration of the call? So we can filter it out significantly. And the client's name will be here. The call source will be here. Source type, all that, all the good stuff. And then again, my download, I can delete the call or I could just play it back right here. Nothing happened on that call. So, but yes, so I wanted to talk about this because again, right here, housing all your calls right here. This should be a good little feature for you to use and rely on. You can rely on it with Twilio being one of the biggest communication providers out there. Like, I don't think they're going anywhere. They're going to store these on file for a significant amount of time. And, you know, like I said, required to keep them for 10 years, but realistically, how many times will you have to present a phone call past, you know, next July, you know, halfway through next year, right? That would be about the time frame. If somebody's going to file a complaint, they're going to file a complaint after July of next year. You know, they're probably not going to file a complaint. They'll move to a new plan during the next AEP or something like that. But in the situation where they filed a complaint and the carrier asks you for the call recording, you want to be able to provide the call recording or any recordings that you got, any communications that you have with that client. So if, you know, in March, they say, hey, we need the call where you talk to Destiny Stanley here. I'm coming in here and I'm just downloading Destiny Stanley's call and I'm going to forward it over to them. Right. So that's just covering you.
I guess for a minute, we can kind of talk about the verbiage of the actual rule, because I get a lot of questions about that. And, you know, I'm not somebody who has a lot of contact with CMS and, you know, gets the full definitions of all of the rules. But I will say I was at a NAHU event a couple of weeks ago, and I got some pretty good clarification, as clarified as it can possibly be. It's still very vague as far as what they want. So when they say they want recordings, every one of your marketing, enrollment, and sales calls have to be recorded. There's no, like, that's what they want. Now, on the other side of that, they said, we recommend that you retain all of your calls, but it's not a requirement. It is a recommendation. So the required call to keep is the enrollment call or the marketing call or the sales call. That's what they're going to be referring back to. So, you know, you can kind of take that as you want to. They say they recommend you keep all calls. It seems, you know, if you start recording and having that much data, you're going to need servers at some point to retain that much information over the course of 10 years. So I think they're going to back off of that and redefine it. But just make sure that if you are doing enrollments or you are doing any sort of selling or scope calls or something like that, just make sure that you have that one recorded in particular, because that's really going to be the one that they're worried about as far as pooling and the way that they're going to enforce it, because it's going to be tough to police something like that with so many agents out there and people who might complain. Like, we'll see how it all goes. But like I said, they recommend you keep every call, but they require that you keep your marketing and your sales calls.
So if you just make it a practice, of starting now, calling everybody out of the system, recording all calls, everything will be recorded and you can come back and reference anything. And honestly, it might help you be a better salesman, right? When in the off season, when things die down, you may come back and listen to some of your calls where you probably never have done that before. And then you'll start seeing situations. It's like, oh, maybe I should have said this, or I could have said that. Um, Listening to your own calls is one of the best ways to be a better salesman.
It's true.
And again, if you've just been doing it off your cell phone or business line, and that's not necessarily recorded, then you probably haven't heard yourself or listened to yourself give a call or presentation over the phone in a while. And I promise you, just listening to a few of them, there's going to be areas where you can improve, and you'll go back and you'll start saying different things just to make the point maybe simpler to understand, or make, different things. You'll notice it when you're listening to yourself.
Use your toning. You use your tone differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it's even your tone that's just wrong, that's driving people up. You're like, I need to be a little happier. I don't sound very happy when I'm talking to people, and you don't realize it because you're talking to people all day long. It becomes you just kind of hear yourself as yourself. But if you actually hear it through another set of speakers, you're like, okay, I need to do something about my tone there.
So it'll help you be a better salesman. It'll also help you, if a client calls back and say, hey, I didn't tell you this. I didn't tell you about this drug. And, I left, you left this drug off. Right. And then you go back and you pull the recording, and he only gave you 5 drugs, and you had all 5 drugs accounted for. And there's not this 6th drug that he's talking about, his Eliquis that you left off of his drug plan. So then you can be assured that you're not the crazy one, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're like, did I do that? Well, I was really busy. Like, I'm not sure what happened, because during AEP, the days start running together, right? You start doing so much volume, by the end of it, you don't remember half the people you talk to. It's almost like driving a car, right? You ever been on a long car ride and you finally pull up in the driveway, and then you don't remember anything about the drive, and you're like, I don't even know how I made it home. Like, I've just been thinking and doing things the whole time. And you're like, did I run the red light? Did I even stop at the stop sign? Like, you start thinking about it. But that's how AEP turns, right? Like, you start doing so much, by the end of it, it's like, I don't know what I did, right? So to be able to have that recording when someone says, hey, you did this wrong, or you didn't do this, and you go back and pull, okay, you can verify, all right, they're the crazy one, or I'm the crazy one, and I didn't do my job, or I did do my job, and they just don't want to admit their fault here.
Yeah,
so.
It can keep you from becoming like, you'll become mentally exhausted anyway from all the conversations, but it will keep you from having that pit in your stomach. It's like, well, I just screwed something up. And good agents and agents who work hard to make sure people are taken care of the best they can be taken care of. What'll happen is you'll make that one little mistake, and then you'll hold it over yourself, or you'll feel bad about what you did. If you can go back and check it out, you can clear your conscience and be like, no, I didn't do that. And you can continue working through that without losing sleep over something you didn't do, or you actually did it correct.
Yeah. The other thing is for training purposes.
Yeah.
If you start hiring new agents or maybe admin, you can get them to start listening to some of these calls to see what that call flow is like, getting used to the conversation. We've done it for a long time. We've always recorded our calls, and it's been one of our best sources of, new hires. Just let them listen to some calls. And then once they start getting on the phone, let them listen to their own calls. Again, that helps. So just in training, whether it's admin or more agents, having these call recordings will help you in several ways, right? So we've just identified at least 4 different ways that these call recordings are going to help you, right? You're going to cover your CMS guidelines and compliance with it. But also you can be a better salesman. You can encourage or train other agents to be better salesmen by listening to these calls as well. So like I said, endless opportunities with the call recording system and what you can do with the GoGuru. I would just start making it a practice now, because this weekend, October 1st is Saturday. The plans are going to be released, and you can start making outbound calls and discussing these new plans with your clients and getting ready for the actual enrollment period. So don't wait. Immediately after this call, I would go set up your phone numbers, place a few phone calls to yourself, maybe to a friend, make sure the recording's being good. Make sure everything's seamless, and then start calling some clients for the rest of the day on it, right? And just see how that goes. Maybe you end up with some questions. You have to come back to me and Will. Maybe you can't get it set up right. By all means, reach out to us. We're here to make sure that you get this system set up, because the last thing I want you to do is be worried about recording phone calls during AEP.
Right.
That is the time to grow your agency and gain new business, service all the clients, all your current book of business, as fast as you can, so you can focus the majority of the enrollment period on gaining new business. Because if you're only servicing current clients, you're not growing. You've got to be able to capture new business. And I promise you, there's a lot of new business out there to be captured. That's no matter if you're just focused on selling MAPDs or med subs, either way, you can be successful this AAP. Don't let the call recording compliance slow you down.
Yeah.
It is, I promise it is not that big of a deal. And you're going to look back in January and be like, I don't even know why I was stressed out about it. But I've talked to so many agents that this has been like at the top of their mind, at their main stress point. And I promise it doesn't have to be. Find a system, find a process, and define that and roll with it. You'll keep doing it. The process is there to make your life easier. Once you have that defined process, it'll be mindless, right? You're not even going to think about doing it because it's the same process every single time. I'm going to pick up my phone. I'm going to log into the GoGuru app and I'm going to place an outbound call. If you have Face ID on there, bam, it's like you're logged in right when you pick it up, and it's the same process. Instead of going to my phone app, I go to my GoGuru app to place outbound calls. Just make that transition now so it's second nature by October 15th. And practice that all during pre-AEP while you're placing these calls to your current clients and you're reviewing their plans, telling them, hey, looks like the next year's plans have been released. You're in a good spot. Don't need to change, or you need to change. Call you back October 15th, whatever the case is, right? Do it all through pre-AEP. So when AEP gets here, you're submitting 10 apps a day. And I promise you, you'll have a successful AEP. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Well, it's hard to, you can't fight it. Like it's coming whether we like it or not. And we have a decently easy way to make sure that things are recorded, but it does take this first little front end of setup. And like Steven said, if you would just go in there, in the onboarding, we have the selection of phone numbers already there in the onboarding, right? That's already included in that. So just, if you haven't been through the onboarding, or if you need, just kind of go through what we just went through right here, go ahead and assign yourself a number. And like Steven said, go ahead and start calling out of it and seeing if there are any issues. If there are any issues, let us know.
Yeah.
And then we can help you get those fixed up before everything falls into place.
Yeah. Schedule a launch call. Again, if you have not scheduled a launch call and you're trying to get this set up, that's part of like the launch call, is making sure your phone numbers are set up the way that they need to be set up, making sure emails are set up so they're going out from your domain and you're receiving them from your domain. That's part of the launch calls, making sure that all of that is set up for you to start using the system, and you to start building more into the system. So if you have not done that and you want to do that, I would recommend let's get it in this week, just so next week you're actually focused on sales and, again, servicing your clients once we start pre-AEP. So anybody have any questions before we hop off of here about call recording or anything else for that matter? So Jason Fisher says, what happens if the recording is corrupt or doesn't import for whatever reason, possible system error, etc.? I have not experienced that. I'm not aware of any issues like that. If that is happening, please reach out to us so we can contact Twilio and get with the developers, see exactly what's going on. But I'm not aware of any issues. I have not ran into something like that. Again, what happens if that happens? Well, you're relying on Twilio and that. So again, if that's a worry of yours, maybe take that extra step, download them onto your own Google Drive or your own cloud, so your own computer, and you're storing them yourself somewhere. And again, that's covering your butt. But if that's a worry of yours, that's just an extra step that you're going to have to take. Either you can rely on GoGuru and the Twilio system to record that information for as long as we're going to need it, or you can actively go and download them again to your physical hard drive or onto the cloud somewhere.
If I think last week there was if y'all were on there and looking at your phone numbers or something like that, there was a bit of an update. Twilio was pushing some stuff in, some things were changing. So if you did see something that was going on funny with the phone numbers at the end of last week, all of that is done. Everything is working exactly the way it should be. So like Steven said, haven't ran into any issues as far as, corrupt files and corrupt recordings and stuff like that. Haven't even seen it. So it's it's kind of like what Justin talks about. Like we can't focus on what the exception to the rule is. Like normally everything works, 99% of the time it's working as business as usual and everything's good. So, I mean, if something like that does happen, generally we probably get with Twilio and get the recording it, somehow, because it's going to be, as Stephen was talking about, it's in their servers. So they can probably pull it and you can probably get the link so that you can get access to it. If it comes down to it and you got CMS breathing down your neck, they're going to help you out as much as they can.
Yeah. And I promise you, the carriers are on your side because they're the one dealing with the compliance, right? So let's just walk through that process of what happens. Unhappy customer calls Medicare.gov, files a complaint against Will, the agent. He put me in a plan that I didn't want. It was unfit for me. My doctors don't accept it. My drugs aren't taken on it, whatever, right? I want to file a complaint against Will. First thing CMS does is reach out to the carrier and says, hey, we have an enrollment for, let's just say Humana MAPD. And we have a complaint. Now it's up to the carrier to deal with the complaint. So the carrier is going to pass that to their regional manager so they can say, hey, regional manager, in your area, we have an agent with a complaint. Can you settle this? That carrier rep is going to reach out to you and say, hey, there's been a complaint. Can we have your, your recollection of the incident? Like what was your take on this? And then you're going to reply to them. And during that, though, now they're going to ask for the call recording. Before, we didn't have call recordings required. So it wasn't something they asked for, but now I imagine they're going to ask for that call recording. So they're going to say, can give me your take of the situation. And then do you have that recording available? And then you give them your think, hey, gave me all the drugs. I looked up doctors. And we went over summary of benefits right there on the phone. It's all in the call recording. Bam. Your ass is covered. Like that carrier wants to continue the enrollment and wants you to be paid as an agent and wants that on the books just as much as you wanted it on the books, right? So they're going to be on your side with everything until you start getting numerous complaints against you. Then that's going to raise some red flags, right? One, it's not a big deal. Two, okay, let's keep an eye on this. Three, all right, what's going on? That's the point, is like the carrier is like, okay, something's going on over there, because one wasn't a big deal. Two, all right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Three, now something's going on. That's the way the carriers are thinking about it. As long as you can provide your call recording and your compliance efforts, then you'll be fine. It's not going to be that big of a deal. And let's just say they did say it was a founded complaint, right? It was founded. It was Stephen was doing bad stuff to Will. He didn't need to enroll him in the plan that he enrolled him in. Then I would get a strike. I may get suspended. I may get terminated, but the carriers aren't in the interest of terminating you permanently anymore. So if anything, you might get a suspension with that specific carrier. So again, it's not something that I would be worried about. And as long as you're doing everything ethically, it's something I really wouldn't worry about. And I'm confident that most of you guys are actually doing things the right way. So that's why I downplay it and say it's not that big of a deal. We had another question here. It was a good one. Where does a recorded call go when a person that's not in your contact list calls in? It's a very good question. If someone calls you to the Twilio number and the contact is not already in your list, it's going to create the contact, but there won't be any name. It'll just be a contact with the phone number, and the call will still be recorded under that call's phone number. I didn't have any examples of that, but you would see it. You could go to your contact list. It would be a blank contact name, a phone number, and then it would show their last activity and how that. And you can click on the contact, open it at the bottom of the contact. It would tell you that the contact was created from an inbound call. So you know that the only reason it's in there is because they called into one of my numbers.
And you can also look at that in the inbox too. If you go click on the inbox on your sidebar, you're going to see anything new that's coming in. So you'll also see that call there as well. Yes.
Does the platform have a way to do conference calls by any chance? No. I say no, but your phone's going to have that ability. So as long as you're on your phone, then I can conference call and it's going to record the call still, no matter what, no matter where that call ends up. So let's just say client calls into my Twilio number that I've set up. The call is going to get forwarded to my cell phone. but now the call's being recorded because it was generated in Twilio. But on my cell phone, I'm talking to the client and we have to call Aetna to straighten something out. Let's just say there's a member ID issue or there's something. We got to call Aetna. We got to get their card. And I'm helping that member call. So now I'm going to call them on my cell phone. I'm going to connect the two calls. That call's still being recorded in Twilio. So I'm still conference calling on my phone. Right now I have a 3-way call with my client and with Aetna all on my phone, but it's still being recorded in Twilio. So can I record conference calls? It's all being recorded by Twilio still. Can I generate 2 calls from the cell phone? No. Right.
So as long as the call is generated from your Twilio number or someone calls into your Twilio number, then you can connect to additional people on the call.
Right. Our same situation. Yeah. I'm placing outbound calls, but I'm calling from the app.
Right.
So I call client out of the app and client says, hey, I've been needing to talk to you. We need to call the carrier for whatever reason and get a hold of them. So now I call carrier, I connect the 2 calls on my phone. Again, Twilio is still recording all of that because the call was generated from that phone number.
Right.
So you can conference call the same way you would traditionally would on your smartphone, and it would be recorded. Same thing. Calls got to be generated in or out from that number.
Right.
All right. I'm assuming Intols will work just like Twilio and Agency Block. I'm assuming Intols will work just like Twilio. Intols will work just like Twilio. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what all Intols does, Jason. So I can't appropriately answer that question. Not sure. Like I said, I'm familiar with what Intols is and how it connects to Agency Block, but I'm not familiar with all the capabilities and functionality of that. So again, I can't confidently say whether or not they would function the same. Let's see. Monica, head over to the support page, schedule that launch call, settings, or excuse me, support. And then it's just one of the buttons right there at the top, schedule a launch call. Go ahead and schedule it on that calendar, and me, Will, or Drew will get with you. Okay. All right. I think we've answered all questions. If nobody else has any other questions, again, thank you guys for joining us today. It's getting down to the nitty gritty. We should be, all of our systems should be getting in place, and we should be getting ready to put the pedal to the metal for AEP and get going. So again, if you need any immediate help in this next week or so, feel free to schedule a call. There'll probably be a lot of calls. I'll probably be on some of them just because I know Will and Drew are going to be very busy. So I'll try to jump on some of these and give some of my insight. Yep. We appreciate you guys, and happy Tuesday. Y'all enjoy the rest of the week.
Yeah, appreciate it.